Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining the Grassroots Models for Vaccine Support System. We're going to be holding a bit of a conversation for mutual aid organizers across the city of Toronto. And this is taking place with Neighborhood Pods, TO. Very exciting speakers for us today. We can move to the next slide. So welcome. I'm going to open us up with a land acknowledgement. I also go through the agenda today, and then I'll pass it off to our speakers. So I'm very proud to be sharing a land acknowledgement today. Definitely in my heart are the 215 children who were found at Camp Lopes Residential School. And I'm very mindful personally, and this project, Mutual Aid Project, would like to see all the residential schools searched immediately. I would like to acknowledge that Toronto is built upon the traditional lands of the Mississaugas, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Chippewa, the Huron, and many other Indigenous peoples. I would like to acknowledge that Canada was founded as a trade and commerce economy that continues to affect the lives and well-being of Indigenous peoples, putting economic greed in front of Indigenous rights. For that reason, I would like to recognize that the invaluable work happening in the Mutual Aid Pods project is based in the Indigenous culture worldview of kinship, taking care of your community, and giving what you have to others who may have less. Although we are doing this work in Toronto soil, it's important to acknowledge that there is a long way to go before conciliation can occur between the City of Toronto Indigenous peoples. Finally, I would like to acknowledge that many Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island live in Toronto. I would like to value their diversity of cultural worldviews, their resiliency, and their ties to their communities. We also acknowledge that many folks in Toronto are newcomers, including those who were brought here against their will through the transatlantic slave trade and other forms of imperialism. We're going to start with a quick Zoom overview just to make sure that everyone knows how to navigate the space. We're also just moving to objectives. We may or may not go into breakout rooms, but it's likely we'll have a collective discussion and then just identify the next steps. So in terms of a Zoom overview, I know we're all on this platform and we're getting used to it, but we recommend during the presentations, if you can take yourself on mute, if you can put yourself on mute, that would be great. During the collective discussion, feel free to take yourself off mute. Also, if your Wi-Fi is unstable, feel free to take yourself off camera, but it'd be great to put yourself on camera. You can see the participants also in the participants tab, and the chat box, the chat function is going to be really important. A little bit more about the chat box. This is where we're going to you can directly message people. You can message the entire group, and we invite you to add any questions you may have during the presentation, and we'll bring that up afterwards. Also in the chat box, you're going to see Google Slides that we might share. So please keep your eye out for that. We'll also be doing Zoom screening like we're doing right now. So today's community call is really to bring together mutual aid organizers and networks that are across the city of Toronto. We really want to hear from organizers about what work they're doing right now and how we can support one another. The purpose of our collective discussion is really to think about how we can support each other in the work that we're doing and amplify our efforts as we collaborate. Okay, so in terms of our community agreement, we are dedicated to creating an inclusive environment for all. Our meetings will build accessible and welcoming spaces for people of all races, genders, classes, abilities, ages, cultures, religions, and sexualities. We will not tolerate harassment of any form, including but not limited to racism, sexism, classism, ableism, homophobia, transphobia, or any other oppressive language and behavior. If you witness or experience harassment, please inform a member of the organizing team, which you'll see marked by a star. Okay. So we're actually going to, keeping in mind our community agreements, we're now going to go and do a bit of a focus on our presenters. So I'm going to just be introducing to start off an amazing collaboration that's taking place in the downtown West between Davenport Mutual Aid and North of Bloor Mutual Aid. And so I'm just going to pass it off just to start us off to Nehaman.
Thanks so much, Teresa. I'm excited to be here. Yeah, so I'm not going to talk too much. I'm really excited to pass it over to Mercedes and Linda, but I will just start by sharing like how excited I am about that's starting here downtown. And one of the big reasons is really because it's a really awesome example of collaboration between groups. So just in terms of the system that you're about to hear, really has been a couple of weeks and like fine tuning and running into many, many challenges and problems along the way, but has been amazing to pull from each other's strengths and knowledge and experiences, kind of fill in all of the gaps to create this really amazing system that is live and growing, something that I'm really excited about and excited to see if it can scale, grow, be replicated, and be some others who similar in their community. So that's all I'm really going to share, and I'm going to pass it over to Mercedes to continue the presentation.
Thank you, Nahum. So before I share my screen, I'm going to say, how grateful we are that you've been collaborating with these for this project. Like, it's been super exciting, and we've learned so much from you. So it's been, amazing. And it really, like, that collaboration has really made a difference in our whole project. So thank you. So let me share my screen. Okay, so I guess it started similar to how it started, I don't know, for all of you, but like we were reflecting on the barriers that we identified when we were booking our own vaccine appointments, like how confusing and how long the waiting times were, and how many barriers we were seeing. Like we're asking ourselves, like how are going to people be getting to their appointments? Like, is there transportation out there? What if they don't have OHIP? What if they have language barriers? What if they have small kids, for example, and they cannot just leave them outside of the clinic, or maybe even take them inside, right? What if they don't have a phone to call the line, or a computer to go into the provincial booking system? What if they're scared? What if they're hesitant, or even just need some emotional support? What if they don't have anybody to go with them, right? Like I needed to go with my husband when I had my vaccine appointment. What if you don't have that support of a friend or a family member? What if you're busy working, which is something we've been encountering too? Like I work from Monday to Sunday. One person was saying, I don't speak English and I just don't know. I don't have OHIP. I just don't know where to go, right? What if they're homebound, like, et cetera, right? Just like seeing so many vaccines, which builds on top of us believing that, we want this to be over and people to be safe, right? So we decided to create a model, and we thought, we were like looking around, we got inspired by other models in other countries, especially in the US. There was a mutual aid group who was doing support model for vaccines. So we got inspired by that and reached out to them, and they were very generous to share what they were doing. And so basically our goal was to build a hotline where people could leave a voicemail in their language, and somebody could just call them back and book an appointment for them. So that could be like, that could look like booking a vaccine appointment directly, or providing support for that person to book the appointment by itself, or maybe arranging transportation or whatever comes out in that call. Always like having in mind our mutual aid goal of just getting that neighbor into our mutual aid group and just yeah, finding him that support that he might be needing, he, she, they. So yeah, seeing this in a mutual aid perspective. So yeah, so basically
Mercedes, we can't hear you any longer. Is that just me?
I can't hear her either.
Mercedes? We're just having a bit of audio issue.
sorry, can you hear
Sorry,
me?
I couldn't hear you.
We couldn't hear you. If you can go back to the next slide and do that slide over again, my deepest apologies.
That's weird.
It's all the computer, this platform.
Okay. Actually, is that better? Can you
We
hear
can
me?
hear you now. I'm not sure what, but we missed probably about 3 minutes or so.
Okay, here? Where did
Yes,
I
please stay
okay,
here.
sorry for that. So yeah, so I was saying we decided to build a hotline so that people would see our number, they would call us, they would leave a message, and we will call them back, and just in that call try to book them a vaccine appointment directly, or provide support so that they could do that, or arrange transportation or any other support that those people might be needing, and always from a mutual aid perspective. So with the idea of spreading the word out about mutual aid and how we are neighbors, hoping to support other neighbors, and just bring the vaccines being an excuse to provide that support, but also to start building that foundation of trust between each other. So yeah, so we ideally, like, we wanted initially to have like many other languages, but so this is the languages that we built so far, because it depends on how many volunteers speaking those languages we have, right? So ideally our goal would be to have as many languages as possible, and if somebody calls, just like making sure that we can give them a call back in the language that they speak. So the outreach has been basically postering our neighborhood, and also reaching out to organizations and micro-influencers in our area, so that they know that we're here. So trying to like poster, flyer, yeah, in our streets. Also reaching out to volunteers by distributing volunteer forms and also referral forms, so that if somebody already knows that there's a person that might be needing this kind of support, so they can reach out to us. We've been like sending these volunteer forms only to other mutual aid groups, as yeah, like the people that would be making calls.
Mercedes, we can't hear you again. I'm not quite sure. You were talking about volunteers making calls. That's the last thing we heard.
Okay.
Now we can hear you.
Okay. I think like somebody's headphones are connecting to to my computer right now. Sorry. Yeah, so looking for volunteers through either our group or other mutual aid groups, so that we get like, we know the people that signed up, because we are, of course, we don't have the screening systems that agencies might have. So we just like group of neighbors wanting to support each other. And we are aware that our volunteers are going to be calling people who might be feeling who might be vulnerable, and we might have to ask for private information. So making sure we have a process where we know, or mutual aid groups know, the people that are making those calls, but at the same time not wanting to have like many barriers for volunteers to sign up. So I guess we're trying to balance those two. So yeah, so this would be how we're booking appointments. So basically, like anybody of us like trying to book an appointment for ourselves would be doing, like going into provincial system and identifying where those appointments are. And again, like facing those privacy issues of us having to ask for private information over the phone. And then looking for pharmacist appointments, to finding the barrier that yesterday, for example, like we're trying to find an appointment for someone who has mobility issues, and he's 65, and he had his appointment before the 18th, the first shot before the 18th of April. And yesterday we were able to find him an appointment, but on Bloor and Shoppers Drug Mart, but he had like that was impossible, because if you like there's like 10 appointments and you have to like rush to that pharmacy, so that won't work. So just yeah, like facing those barriers right now. So we've been like focusing on trying to partner with pop-up clinics so that we get restricted links, so that we don't have to ask for many information, just name, surname, and yeah, contact details. So right now the only link we have is ComH, but I think it's not our restricted link, it's open to everybody. So yeah, so we don't have that yet, but that's hoping we could have that in the future. Yeah, so challenges. So basically right now, challenges like our posters get removed very, very fast, unfortunately. Not getting many calls so far. Also, like we have identified that in order for these to like work smoothly, we need more volunteers, and also the language piece is very important, like that we have like volunteers for at least 1 or 2 for every language, right? And right now that's not the case. Also the tech part has been a little bit complicated. I mean, Nahum made it much easier, but there were times when it was a bit of a nightmare, and there's still like some things that are not easy. So our first appointments, like we just like used a simplified version, and we just used our own phones. But yeah, so that part, I think, like not having from the beginning like a tech person volunteer has made it a little bit harder. Yeah, as I said before, not having restricted links. We are trying to build a system where all of our volunteers, which are like different ages and like different are more or less tech savvy, feel comfortable to just join and make those calls. So so trying to build a system that it's easy for volunteers too. And then a lot of thought into integrating other services from agencies, like because we're going to tailor to whatever that person is asking us to do. So trying to integrate transportation and other services that might be out there, which is also not easy. And yeah, and last but not least, figuring out the financials, right? Like creating a hotline has a cost. So figuring out how we're going to be doing that. And yeah, I think that's all.
Thank you so much, Mercedes.
Check the chat, so I'm not sure.
There's a couple of questions. I don't know if we can, I put them in the chat, and I know, of course, Linda is also here from Nomba, and Nahum from Davenport, which is kind of the collaboration. So in terms, I'll list the questions, and whoever wants to jump in, please do offer them. So the first question is the group that you reached out to in the States, how did you connect with them? And are you maintaining that relationship? The second question is when you have helped people, How did they react? What was the impact for them, beyond them actually getting the appointment? And lastly, who created the volunteer forms that you were showing? Were those agencies that created the form, or was it mutual aid organizers?
Okay, I think I can respond unless Linda wants to respond.
I just know vaguely the name, so I think it would be better.
Okay, I'll respond. So yeah, we just we basically looked on online, and we found them, and we sent them an email, and that was it. Like, I saw an article, like we read an article about this mutual aid group, and we just shared that we were humbling, wanting to do something similar, like in a small group, and they send us an email back and send us all sorts of forms and information and answers. We've been trying to contact them again, especially during the tech nightmare phase, for some tech support, but I think they're serving so many people that I think they're super busy right now. So still we haven't connected with them again. The forms, we created those forms. We based them on what they were doing. So yeah.
Shahanara, go right ahead.
Yeah, just a quick question to Mercedes. So when you first reach out to them, the response was positive, like they were like,
yeah, the
okay,
response was amazing. Yeah,
okay.
they were like super generous. They shared with us every document they had. That was
Great.
Yeah, it was great.
Because I'm also planning something small, so in my mind I'm learning, so that I'm here today. So just to learn from you. You are expert now. You already has created the platform. So definitely it will be helpful for all of us. Like, we are new, so we'll try, do our best. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm happy to just connect with you later and just go with you step by step what we did. Like, I didn't have any previous experience, and I think everything I do, I'm new to what I'm doing. So, so I'm happy to share with you.
Job. Yeah, I saw you already created the platform. Like, I wrote some notes, like how did you outreach your all the how you reach out to the information, and how did you create those things. Wow, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mercedes, if you don't mind. Oh, sorry, Nahum, I see your hand.
Yeah,
I just saw, and I hope folks can hear me. Audio problems all around this morning, it seems like. Just for responding, there was a question in the chat about collaborating with other grassroots groups for language support and volunteers. And yes, 100%. I think what we were hoping to do was get something that works, get it going, get phone calls, make sure it's a thing that we can grow with. And so at this point, language support is huge, definitely something that we need help with. But then also, coming from putting the tech together on the back end, I feel like finally at this point, it's something that I could walk through. So I feel excited, this is definitely a system that could either scale. We do have one phone number, so theoretically, with more volunteers, we could go into different neighborhoods, or something that we could teach other people to replicate, and you could have your own hotline neighborhood. And I think there's probably some to both. I also wanted to ask a question, kind of ironically, because I'm part of the collaboration, but you were talking about the posters coming down, and I was just thinking maybe flyering mailboxes might actually be a next step.
So one of the things, we had flyers in every language, right? And then when we were about to fly it, we were because we don't have, I hope, I wish we knew all our neighbors already. Even after 1 year of doing mutual aid, we don't. So I wish we had that foundation, because right now we were about to fly here and we were like, so should we use a Portuguese, a Chinese? Like, we didn't know what language is spoken in every street, right? So that's why we are trying like to get like influencers in our streets, because they know and we don't, right? So so we will be flyering in English soon, which I hope we could. It's just like I wish we could like flyer in everybody's language, but we don't know in advance what language is spoken, right? So yeah, I guess flyers are better.
I think we'll open up one last question and then we're going to pass it on. Shahanara, I think I'm going to give that one to you. Go ahead, Shahanara. I think you had one last question.
So Mercedes, if you have if you need any support, like in regards to language, like I speak Bangla, and my friend speaks she is from Sri Lanka. I have couple of friends in Regent Park, and I know Walied lives here as well. So we have multicultural, language. So
Amazing.
sometimes if you need any, like you want to translate into, but you don't know anyone, like you will do for your community, I know. But if you need language support, you can reach out to me. I'll either I will help you in Bangla, otherwise other speaking person I can connect you.
Amazing, thank you. And we always pictured this model as a mutual aid collaborative model, right? Like, because we are aware that we have like these big ideas, we have this passion, and I say we because I'm talking about Linda too. Like, we have this passion to support our neighbors, but sometimes our group's small, so it's not. We have to really think about our capacity. So I always thought, I always said that this could be a mutual aid collaborative project. And even when we are like providing like mutual aid support, we couldn't care less about our catchment area, right? It's just like we have people in our group that live in Vaughan, so that's how much we care about catchment area, right? So I think it's okay to just I think it's perfect to just collaborate in these. So yeah, so thank you and welcome.
Thank you so much to Mercedes, Linda, and Naham, really representing a collaboration that is happening right now in real time between North of Bloor Mutual Aid and Davenport Mutual Aid. So that's very exciting. Thank you so much for coming and joining. And also I saw a call out, an invitation to all other mutual aid organizers and other mutual aid networks across the city to collaborate or to learn with one another. So that's very exciting. Thank you. We're actually going to now pass it off, shift a little bit, kind of towards the downtown East Regent Park area. I'm introducing Walied Khogali Ali, who is an amazing community organizer in so many different spaces. I'm sure many people who are watching this know him already. He needs very little introduction. Walied, please go right ahead.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction, and welcome everyone. And thank you so much for your interest in community organizing to support our neighbors access the vaccine. Really appreciate the lovely presentation made by Mercedes, which kind of sums up some of the institutional challenges a lot of folks in our community face when it comes to accessing the vaccine. And most importantly, the importance of making sure this information is accessible. When it comes to linguistically, different languages, or when it comes to folks accessing the system itself. So I'm going to quickly delve into this 15 minutes or less into my own personal experiences as a community organizer, supporting about 300 of my neighbors in a span of less than 2 weeks. Get access to the vaccine, and continuing that ongoing support moving forward for the second dose. So I'm going to talk about my personal experiences doing it my way and what I've been able to rely on. And what I want to start off by saying is providing context first, which is you can't do this type of work without the relationships and the trust built over years as an organizer, and that's important for everyone to know, but it doesn't mean you can't start, and that doesn't mean you can't really delve into it and do this work. Okay, it's never too late. So the way I see it is, when you're starting this work, it's important to reach out to other folks in the community that have the relationships, so that the word gets out about what that support looks like. And as a racialized organizer, I actually had to deal with interesting dynamics that I'm going to reflect on as well, which was, folks saying it can't be done. What are you doing? This doesn't seem legit. It sounds like a scam. Like that sort of response was so shocking, right? And it speaks to, also like the racial undertones that some folks, were basically putting out, the microaggressions that racialized organizers experience when they do this type of work, right? So what I did was basically did the basics, and anyone can do this. You can start by identifying collaborative partners. So finding out who your local health clinic is. Google search this, go on 211. I can also start projecting resources for you folks to look at, but this is stuff that you could find on Google, 211, find out who your local health partners are, find out the space. Is there a space where this doses can be administered, right? Because what I realized, where people knew about the space but couldn't access the vaccine. These are folks that didn't have access to emails or the internet, people who had only access to a phone. Some of them had advocates, folks who couldn't communicate well, they had challenges in speaking. They had other challenges, when it pertains to even just getting support for other services that they have lost due to this pandemic. So they needed advocates. Their friends were advocates, their family members were advocates. People wanted to make sure they got access to the dose. They just didn't know how to go about it. And as we all know, the booking system can sometimes be very complicated, and folks with privilege who know how to access it are able to get into the front of the line. And what I also realized was a lot of racialized folks were not getting vaccinated. I visually will go outside the clinic and see not many people from my community that I've organized with or supported. They're not on the line. They're not in the lineup. So how could I make sure that was not the norm? How could we work collaboratively? So I started meeting with our health partners. I started securing support for appointments. I started working with other local agencies or local organizations, whether it was in Moss Park, like Building Roots, right? Or other, non-for-profit organizations that did work in supporting the community, like just youth organizations like Healing as One, or Youth Gravity, or other organizations that could amplify the simple graphic that I'll probably just share in a bit, which is, you need help, contact me and I'll support you. Very simple. All you need to do is give me the following information, which is the basic information. You don't need the health card number. I just need specific information to get them an appointment. And it was that easy. And people, there's something powerful with simplicity, right? Because when people are going through a very hectic, life, they have a lot of other challenges. It's helpful when someone can support them, make it happen right away. And it was also about communication and education. And I'm going to project some resources just before I conclude on how that looks like, how that ongoing education starts, because people didn't understand the differences between the vaccines, whether it was an mRNA vaccine or a DNA vaccine, whether it was, AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson, or it was Pfizer and Moderna. They didn't understand the differences. And so it was important for, you as an advocate to share those resources. And I shared that, and I'll show you some examples of what those resources look like. The other important piece is about ensuring that, they are able to educate others, inform others of that support, and in some ways also replicate this work, right? So what I was able to do was also try to get other folks to start thinking about how they could support their community members with the similar tools. I'm like, listen, you know, it's okay. You know, you want to replicate the stuff that I did, you've got my permission. Go ahead. Start building the infrastructure, right? Because you're not only going to support these folks after the second vaccination, right? But if it's future pandemics, if it's future support when it comes to accessing resources in the community, you will be seen as a community advocate that people could rely on and actually have a relationship with, right? And my type of work as a community organizer is constant follow-up, right? So, you know, I will be following up with folks before the appointment, you know, after the appointment. A lot of folks are very appreciative, very thankful about how organized things were, because at the end of the day, it's about respecting their time, right? And the elderly, especially, right, need those accessible options of appointments, especially because, you know, they have to get wheel trans arranged in many cases. They have to, like, there's a lot of planning that goes into just getting that one vaccination. And sometimes some of you folks may have, you know, watched some funny YouTube videos or stuff on TikTok about people dressing up to get their vaccine, right? It's that big of a deal, right? So it's appreciating that as well as a community advocate, right? That you're helping someone be part of the solution. And most importantly, you're helping that person with information they need to push, you know, for vaccine confidence, you know, to actually, through education, be able to push back against narratives that might not be helpful helpful to the vaccination efforts. And, you know, we're actually in a very good position as a country. You know, I think we're #1 in the world for the first doses, right? And that's a good track record to build on for the second dose, right? Because that's actually how we make it happen, right? It's not your first dose. The second dose increases to 80-something%. And my biggest worry is people thinking they got their first dose and it's done, right? It's over, right? I'm vaccinated. No, you're not fully vaccinated, right? So it's also about educating folks with regards to that. And then the last thing that I want to say, it's with regards to how you can get started, right? You can get started tomorrow if you wanted to. If you have the time, if you want to collaborate with your health partners, who are always looking for folks in the community to collaborate with, to promote vaccine confidence and to promote access to vaccines. If you want to reach out to your neighborhood association, one of the things that I did was when I joined the leadership of the neighborhood association, I made sure that we talked about it. How do we promote vaccine confidence? How do we support projects like this? Let's endorse this initiative, right? Bring it up in those spaces so people know, at least have a conversation about how to access these resources. And also reach out to folks you're already supporting. You know, I do this on an ongoing basis through either food security work. You know, we're feeding over 400 people a day during the month of Ramadan. We were able to tap into those families and saying, have you got vaccinated? Let me support you get vaccinated. Here's how. It's this simple, right? It's not complicated. And then people will sometimes translate for each other. You know, folks who are in different communities will do, like, I will have contact with people in the Spanish community, in the Bengali community, in the Chinese community, in the various communities in Regent Park, who translated this stuff for me into English and sent it to me and said, we trust you with this information, get our families access for appointments so they could get vaccinated, right? And that's very important. That's based on the trust you're able to build with your neighbors. You know, I'm on a first name basis with my neighbors, right? And that's the beautiful thing about this work, is because people get to know each other, get to support each other, and you're also building capacity in those neighborhoods. And you're also supporting the neighborhood associations and local agencies, especially health partners, connect with vulnerable members of the community that have very little access to vaccine appointments, right? So I'm going to quickly share this stuff. Give me 1 second. this is an example of an email draft that's, I took out the information of folks due to privacy, but this is just a simple sort of draft email that I will send to every single person that made a request, right? Which is, when is your appointment? A link to a YouTube resource that speaks to what an mRNA vaccine is. I appreciate that people will want to see it in different languages and, different resource, different, audiovisual format. How vaccines work. This is a resource that, comes from the CDC. Very helpful. It speaks to like how all the vaccines work. And I can click on this links and share it in a bit. And then also what you need to know before you, get your appointment. This is a resource that comes from Unity Health. It comes from our health partners. So it's about incorporating all this information from our health partners that people need to know, information from the CDC, information from other YouTube, other resources. It's about getting folks to start asking questions about vaccinations, and then just simple things that they, need to have, health card or other government ID. And in some cases, when the folks don't have status and they reach out to me, I'm like, you don't need that. Okay. And here's how, right? I'll give them the information they need, right? So let me stop sharing this. Okay. And I'm also going to open up a quick resource. Okay, so I'm going to also share a quick resource, different languages. So this is in Spanish, for example. And this is an example of opportunities for education that I did referral for, right? So, if the opportunities for folks to learn more about, vaccine confidence or about the various types of vaccines, whether it's in Spanish or it's in different languages, I will get that information from our health partners and get it out there, right? And I'm gonna stop sharing this and show you something you could do over social media, something very simple that you could do over social media that, okay, 1 second. So folks have Facebook, folks have, Instagram, Twitter. There's various formats that folks can adopt, various ways to promote vaccine opportunities for vaccine registration. So 1 second, I'm just gonna share this. Okay, excellent. Okay, so this is one opportunity. And it's this simple, okay, share screen. Let's see if it's shared. Okay, so I'm on Instagram, for example, right? This is one of my stories, for example, just to promote the opportunities for folks to get registered. And folks will screenshot this and share it with their friends. And, they share it through various forums, whether it's through WhatsApp or through other like Twitter as personal messages, because I will get these screenshots and folks sending me this information says, I need your support to get access to a vaccine appointment. Okay, so this is one example of promotional story. Okay, so I'm gonna keep quiet and take questions because I've said a lot of information in a very short period of time, but I wanted to bring about this perspective from a personal organizing perspective. I really appreciate Mercedes' presentation because she spoke about the broader barriers and sort of like, challenges as an organizational piece, right? But with this approach, you're not spending any money. It's free. It's just your time. But you're using the information that you're getting to better support folks who might have not had that opportunity to book an appointment early. And as you all are aware, the earlier you get your vaccination, the earlier you get your second dose. It's almost like timed based on when you get registered. And there are folks right now who are registering for their first dose, and it's June, by the way, right? And I'm still helping those folks, right? So it's about making sure that folks who are, really at risk, folks who are racialized, indigenous, essential workers, folks who are at the front lines, who basically might, be exposed to various variances of this viruses, that they get vaccinated as soon as possible. And I know, for our indigenous, members of the community, we've made that possible. So it's very important to make sure that other folks who might also have those health conditions that, make them a priority, but they're not aware of it because of linguistic challenges or other challenges. And what's really unfortunate is we're not even seeing advertisements on the broader scale to reach out to folks with no status, folks who are refugees, folks like I don't see an ad on CBC or CTV or CP24 targeting that population, right? Which basically feels like sometimes they are not seen, right? And it's how do we create spaces to ensure that they're able to access the vaccines in their communities, right? And making sure that folks who are doing this work on the front lines know that they're able to access the vaccine as well, right? And to make sure that the communication reflects that as well. So I'll stop there.
Walied, thank you so much for that presentation and going into detail and really offering concrete examples about what you can do right now to move this effort forward. So thank you so much. I've collected some questions that have come through. I did put in the chat box. There's a couple of questions there, maybe too many to answer for the time we have available. So we have about 5 minutes left until we move to our next speaker. And so I thought maybe Walied, I'll read up the questions to you. And if you can identify the 2 questions that you really want to answer, that would be great. And maybe the rest of, if you have any other questions, the answers, you can put them in the chat box. So the questions that people offered today is number 1, how do you deal with people's microaggressions? What advice would you give others who are dealing with that? Because I know it's consistent, right? It's happening all the time. So what, how do you deal with it? What advice would you offer? It's a hard question. Number 2.
That's a really good question, but you know what? I vent. That's who I am as a person. I don't like to keep things bottled in.
So share.
I'm an empath. I don't like to be angry more than 10 seconds of my life. I feel like that's wasting my life or wasting my time. So I reflect on it. I get upset about it. And people respond with humor and actually with support and be like, keep going, Walied. The haters are gonna hate, man. What do you expect, right? And that keeps me actually going. But it's hurtful, when you put this all this energy, trying to support folks, and people are trying to complain about you, try to sabotage your project. What I do though is I respond with empathy, especially if I receive it through messages. I'd be like, I'm trying to advocate for folks who don't have the privilege to fight, who are not in these forums, and I try to educate them so that their microaggressions end, hopefully end towards other folks who are racialized, indigenous, or folks who are doing this type of work. Because they might not see it. They may think they're progressive champions, going out there just trying to make sure that people are not getting scammed, as they like to put it. People who look like me usually are criminalized or seen in a very suspicious way because of systemic anti-Black racism, right? So, what I've learned is meet them where they're at, call them in. It's about building a better world at the end of the day. Judge. I can't judge anybody. You know, I reserve that for my creator. That's what I know. And, you know, the best thing you can do is invite them to the possibility that other people who might look like me or who look like me or who do this type of work in other communities are actually doing it for the right reasons, you know. So that's how you deal with microaggressions. It's try to bring back some humanity into the conversation, and maybe some shame will come out of it, some unlearning, and some growth, right? So that's how I will deal with that.
Thank
The
you,
other
Ali.
piece, yeah.
I'll ask you the last question here in the list, which is you talked a lot about trust, about it's the trusting relationships that's really enabled you to have such a huge impact over such a short period of time.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, in your understanding, what is the most important things, not only to build trust, but maintain trust? When you're in the community, how do you build that? How do you maintain that?
How you maintain that is by communicating. It's by managing expectations and setting them collectively with the folks in your community. You know, when it comes to support, when it comes to follow up, you know, when I like it's your word, right? Your word is your bond. When you say you're going to do something, you do it. And if you don't, you have to have a good reason. And that good reason, you know, better be one that is delivered before the person feels disappointed, right? So for example, you know, if a project comes up that is so much that I have to deal with immediately, that will postpone certain things, I will call the person, I will call the neighbor, be like, listen, here's what's happened in my life. How do we move on? You know, how do we make this happen? And this compromise that's reached, but that's because it's done collectively, right? So I think a good organizer, a good advocate communicates well, never leave things for granted, does things with integrity, right? That's how you build trust. And it's also about ensuring that folks who you are supporting are also able to build their own capacity to support others, right? Because it's not about just a relationship where, you know, you do all the work for them forever, right? That's not capacity building. As a community organizer, I think about capacity building all the time. It's like, how can I teach you certain skills so you can be able to support your neighbor? And we actually have that agreement, right? And that's a beautiful way to have a relationship where you're able to mentor and support you know, folks in your community do this work when you're not able to, right? Because, you know, you can be a superhero of the community. A real superhero of the community is one that builds on the skills and the talents of folks in the community for them to be their own superheroes in their own communities. That's the real superhero, right? So that's how you should approach it. It's not about doing all the work and taking all the credit. It's about how do you support folks be able to do this work so they're able to learn from your experiences and you're able to learn from theirs in the future, right? It's also about a good leader is also a good follower. You take a step back and you listen, right? Because there are new things you might learn. So it's about that sort of respect with folks in your community.
Thank you so much, Walied. I see we have a question from Shahanara.
Just a quick
question.
remark.
Go ahead.
Oh my God, so many experience in region park. So one thing I just want to say that yes, Walied is a great leader, but there is so many other leaders. I don't want to mention their name, but Walied will understand. Some leaders are so, what I can say, like they are so, like they are so want to keep their power with themselves. Honestly, they don't want to share. What Walied mentioned, capacity building is very important. But some leaders in our community, they don't want to share their, you know, that power to build other people. Also, they just want to exercise their thing, and people like they expect that people will just, you know, celebrate them. Oh, she is good, or he is very champion, something like that. But that's not the community organizing or the leadership, you know. We all should grow together. but some leaders are like that. I just want to say that. Oh my God, lots of versatile experience you will learn from Regent Park.
Thank you so much, Shahanar. I have to say too, Waleed, your points about how to build trust and maintain trust are so powerful. They're really, really powerful. And I have to say thank you so much for sharing them with us here today. Waleed, do you have any other final thoughts before we move on to Charlene Henry?
Yeah, I think it's never too late to start. Like I said, I want to encourage all of you folks to start with your neighbors, just checking in, finding out, do you need support with a second dose? You know, share it on your social media. Get started with supporting you folks in your community, because you never know what it's going to lead to. You know, a lot of folks that I've talked to on the phone want to get more engaged in other community projects, in other neighborhood projects. They're like, thank you for talking to me about vaccines. I've always wanted to get involved in Regent Park. I've always wanted to give back, right? So there's so many benefits to doing this type of work. So I want to encourage you folks to get started if you haven't started. And even if it's in a small way, so that at least you're able to build on that experience, I want to encourage you to do that.
Thank you so much, Waleed, from the Regent Park, downtown East. So we're going to take a bit of a shift towards the York Weston Pelham area. I'm going to be inviting Sharlene Henry to speak with us today. Sharlene Henry is a longtime member of the York Southwestern Tenant Union, and we are very lucky to have her. I think it's because of her work that she's been doing in the community much before the pandemic, the beginning of the pandemic. We are being able to kind of learn from her. So Charlene, if I can welcome you to share a little bit about the work that you're doing, in particular in York Weston Pelham area and with the tenant, York Southwestern Tenant Union.
Thank you, Ana Teresa. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank Mercedes and Waleed for educating us, because I did learn as well from their presentations of what's happening in their community. I'm representing the York Southwestern Tenants Union. We've been around officially for 2 years now, but we started this work pre-pandemic, fighting and advocating for tenants' rights, which is a huge thing here in York Southwestern Pelham. We're going through a regentification in our neighborhood, and some grassroots people just came together as one and started this executive and this union to fight for tenants' rights. So that was our way of building trust in our community. People know of us. Some people love us, some people don't, but they know what we're doing, and we're very involved with supporting our neighbors with, be it a rent increase that was above guideline, or just going to the landlord tenant board and fighting for something like not having access to a swimming pool in their building for an extended period of time, or not having something fixed in their apartment. So we did really reach out to our community, and we grew from having 4 buildings involved into the tenant union to having approximately 13 buildings across our area. During the COVID, we really supported neighbors with just accessing things like food security and different programs in the neighborhood that someone may not know of because they never had the need, because they were off from work or laid off, or never had the need to have access to a food bank or a hot meal. So we started with that support in the community, and it grew into vaccine support. So in York Southwestern, we have a counselor who promoted a pop-up back at the end of March through her newsletter and on social media, and then that pop-up was canceled. So right away, I got on the phone and text members of the union like, this is ridiculous. I know people in my building who were going to attend this pop-up, and it was open because we were a hotspot to everyone 18 and over. And I know it's going to happen. We're going to get a lot of people coming to us for support. So we came up with an action plan of how we're going to do our outreach to the community to get everybody who wanted to be vaccinated. So through the month of April and May, and still now, we have been doing things like phoning. We have the list of everybody, emails and phone numbers, phoning the members of our different tenant associations in our buildings, because we have tenant leaders in each building, including myself, phoning, flyering the buildings, putting it on our Facebook page that this is what we're doing. And this has created response from the community. Again, the trust is built. So what we're coming to them with, they trusted us. And one of our fearless leaders, Kiara, also made a connection with Unison Health, Black Creek Unison Health, to get us appointments for who needed it in our hotspot areas. So myself included, I'm in my 40s. I was angry that I couldn't get an appointment that worked with my schedule. I work shift work, I have young children, I'm involved in my community, I have many things going on my plate. So it wouldn't be a matter of just going to a pop-up clinic and standing in line for 4 to 5 hours, which is what our community was experiencing. It was, I needed an appointment. I wanted an appointment, just like the seniors got through the portal. I wanted an appointment and I couldn't access the portal because of my age. So that I was a great example of how we need to get people vaccinated in the community who wanted to be vaccinated. So we put out an email call for volunteers, for people who spoke different languages in our community. We had many people, not even that live in our area, agree to help us out with doing some phone calling and flyering. So in the end, we made over 5,000 phone calls. We had 4,000 flyers delivered. We had 1,000 conversations about the vaccine. We booked 500 appointments in a matter of a 2-week period. We got people information about upcoming pop-ups in our hotspot. And we had language support in Spanish, Somali, and Vietnamese. So we focused on booking frontline workers. We had appointments booked. We even had 3 or 4 people driven to their appointments, had accessibility issues. We had volunteers for that. We really made an impact in the community. And then after that, we all felt emotionally drained and exhausted, because it's hard work, as we all know. Being a community activist, it can play a toll on us physically, mentally, and socially, because it's what we're doing is hard works. The powers that be are not working with us. So it became emotionally hard on us. And even in our executive meeting, we just talked about how we were feeling. And a lot of people were drained, and we tried to go the route of working with our MP to get vaccination clinics right into our buildings. The buildings did not want that. They wanted us to go to the portal. It was a lot of pushback from the powers that be. So we had to keep figuring out ways to get out there. We use, we have a number that we text for our meetings that just sends a text message to everybody on our list saying that, hey, we have a tenant association meeting, or we're having a tenant union meeting, we want you to join. We use that phone number and we text people. If you want to be vaccinated, please text us back or email us and give us a phone call so we can get you an appointment as per your schedule. Because as we know, frontline workers, people who are working during the lockdowns, don't work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. They work shift work, they work nights, they work 4 days a week, 5 days a week, but not necessarily Monday to Friday. So we were trying to really adapt and change as we went to get to go over the barriers of getting people an appointment. We've had hundreds of emails of thank you to us for what we've done, for the work that we've done. And people even in the community, they come up to you and say thank you for the work that you do. And that's the best part about the work that we do, as we all know. When someone who we've helped tells us thank you and said, I really appreciate what you did for me and my family. I've had people stop me and my kids are like, come on, mommy. And I'm like, give me a moment, where they said, the work that you guys are doing is amazing. But it all goes back to the trust we built. We built that trust between 2018, 19, and 20. And then we came into this pandemic. We all didn't know what was going to happen during this pandemic. And here we are at hopefully seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, but still doing this work to get people vaccinated. Our next phase is going to be with the second dose. We are still considered a hotspot to get people vaccinated. And really, I'm hoping that all of us somehow bring this information and what we've done to the powers that be. That's what ultimately should be our goal, because the powers that be don't understand that the hotspots are the areas that they know, stats say, marginalized people, but they don't understand why marginalized people say, hey, I know that I might have a symptom, but I need to go to work today because I need to feed my family. I need to pay my rent. If I don't work one day, I don't make my month. Like all those factors that are there in the background, they say it on news and they say in their press conference, oh, the amazing work and marginalized communities and the race-based data, but to really have a conversation with someone who tells you, look, Charlene, if I don't go to work today and I go to this pop-up clinic, I can't make my month. It's heart-wrenching. It is, in my area, the story of hundreds of thousands of people. They still go to work. They still get up every morning or every evening, put on their mask, get on that TTC packed bus and go to work. And this is important that the city understands, and the governments and the powers that be understand what it is, the plight of people in the hotspots. I'm interested to see what's going to happen after this is all done and all the reports come out that say what has happened. but I think that the reports need to come from us because we've walked the walk and we've experienced that experience, and from the people who've actually lived this, because it's a lived experience. So that's what I'm hoping will happen in the end. York Southwestern Tenants Union is here for the fight. We're to the finish. We're not going to give up on our community. We're here for our community. And we hope that everybody who wants to be vaccinated in this city gets the opportunity to be vaccinated. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charlene, for sharing about the amazing work. When I heard those numbers, I'm like, wow, those are huge numbers. Thank you so much. And it seems also over a short period of time. There are some questions that came through for you, Charlene. I have kind of listed them in the chat box. What I'll do is I'll read them out. If you can if you can answer the questions. I know we are running short on time, so don't feel that you have to answer all these questions. The first question is, how did people react when the tenant union approached them with the vaccine? Did any of your members not like this? The second question is, how do you deal with the emotional and physical drain? The third question is, how is the vaccine outreach impacting the trust that you've already built? Is it increasing it? How's that impacting? The last question is, how can the city or the powers that be support frontline workers specifically?
Okay, I have a train passing, so I hope you guys can hear me. The people that we reached out to that already know of us were very appreciative of us. We've gotten people crying on the phone saying, I can't get an appointment. I've been trying, an appointment. That has been the status quo, that we reached out at that time where people were getting frustrated and they could not get access to an appointment. And here we are saying, hey, we can get you an appointment. Give us what days and times you're available and we'll do this work for you. So that was, people were overwhelmed and overjoyed with that. What was the other question about? Repeat one of the third question, I think.
The third question is, how is the vaccine outreach impacting the trust you have already built?
Well, in the York Southwestern Tenants Union, I think we went from 11 buildings to 14 buildings in the matter of a few weeks. And that was through our outreach to the community, or talking to that right person who's like, hey, this stuff is going on in my building. I've heard of you guys, and now you guys are doing this for us. I want to join. So we've had new members come in, members at large come in, which has been amazing because of the outreach that we're doing. And we've gone from a building having no tenant association to having a tenant association. So it's easier to get that information out there because they have a list of names and numbers and a relationship with those tenants in that building, be it a high rise, a low rise building. It's a part of our outreach. It's a part of us getting our name out there, people knowing the work that we're doing, so which is amazing. Our info@tenantunion.ca email has been blown up at some points with thank yous, with I want to join you guys. I live in a house and I still want to advocate for tenants. And all of these things have happened over the past, I'm going to say 6 or 8 weeks because of outreach that we're doing in the community. And people are recognizing what we're doing and giving us a pat on the back, which is really great to hear and see and feel. I know one of the questions was about the emotional drain. I know that Kiara has spoken very openly to it. Another of our tenant association chairs, Heather, has spoken openly about her frustration of the pushback. And I'm all about self-care because we've learned in the pandemic that we have to be okay mentally, physically, emotionally. So it's about maybe taking that time and just pausing and not doing that work for a day and coming back to it with a fresh mind, because sometimes we're overwhelmed. We're hearing all of these stories, be it positive or negative, but it's overwhelming on ourselves personally. And I know that for myself, being a mom, working, doing my advocacy in the community, it can become overwhelming. And sometimes you just have to turn everything off and just be still. That's what I like to say. Just be still in your positive thoughts, because there's always something positive. Number one, we live in Canada. We're very blessed. We're getting through this, and we're getting through this with our communities. So we have that to lean on. Your last question was about the powers that be. I have so much to say about the powers that be. Number one, we have to use our right to vote. Those who can vote need to get out there and vote. And we speak for those who cannot vote as well, because we as grassroots organizers are communicating with those who don't have status, who may be new to Canada and who don't have those rights. We have to go out there and vote and not just vote. We have to continue to fight against the powers that be and make sure that they know that this is what's happening in my community and what are you going to do to fix it. We need to hold our governments accountable from the very top to our prime minister all the way down to our councillor in our city. We have to hold every single person accountable for what they do, because it not only affects our community where we live, but affects the whole country. The rollout in Ontario, as we all know, was an embarrassment. Our vaccine rollout was an embarrassment on a national scale because our rollout was not organized. They were doing it way too slow. So many factors. Yes, the factors of not getting vaccines, but the rollout was an embarrassment. We're Ontario. We should be the forefront and the leaders in rolling out this vaccine. And then when we go back to the support from the city, the provincial level, we need to hold them accountable when it's time to vote. And it's coming up, and we all know that, but we need to, as people who can vote, hold our government officials accountable. We pay their salary. I always say that. We pay their salary. They need to be held accountable by the community, especially more marginalized people. We need to get out there and vote and show the powers that be that, hey, this is what you did and we don't agree with that. And it did not help our community. It actually paralyzed our community. And yes, we were deemed a hotspot. And what did you do to help us with our rollout? Because grassroots organizations were doing the work. We all know that. Grassroots organizations were doing more work than the city. That's that. I get a little heated about it, sorry.
No, it's important to, these are very important conversations and we are very passionate about it. I think that's why we're all community advocates. So thank you so much, Charlene, for sharing what's happening in the York Weston Pelham area. We have about 10 minutes or so till we complete. Just want to identify the next steps for our group, for the work that we're doing as mutual aid organizers across Toronto. I also want to, after I go through next steps, just open up the floor one last time to Mercedes and Walied, just for any final thoughts, as well as Charlene. So in terms of next steps, we are on Discord, amazing. So please do check us out on Discord. If you can link in that link to the chat box, that would be great, Nahum. We are trying to, again, everyone's learning Discord. So if you're unfamiliar with it, no worries. We are providing trainings. We're trying to provide trainings regularly. Also, we are building out community-based models to navigate vaccine hesitancy and build vaccine confidence. So if you're interested in joining our kind of think tank around this, again, these are all grassroots organizers that are trying to figure out how do we navigate vaccine hesitancy and build vaccine confidence from that community lens, precisely what Charlene and many others talked about today, really from that kind of building power from below lens. Also, we do have monthly events. We're going to be holding another meeting at the first month of July. So please keep your eyes open for your email. And now I'm just going to actually invite Mercedes for last thoughts. Then I'm going to go to Walied, and then I'll finish off with Charlene. Mercedes, would you like to offer any last thoughts as we're finishing today?
Yeah, I just wanted to say how grateful I am for this space, and also reflecting on what you both said about already having a foundation and people that already trust you, right? As opposed to like starting from scratch, but also, feeling energized to continue to do the work. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Mercedes. Walied?
Yeah, I just want to, remind folks or organizers out there, it's important to educate, agitate, especially those you're educating, to help others, and organize and continue to organize with them, right? So educate, agitate, and organize. That's a campaign cycle that, you always follow as an organizer. And what I also want to do is just remind all of you folks to get started. It's never too late. Work with folks in your community who have those relationships to build on the support that you can offer them. It's about working as a community. It's about capacity building. That's another reminder for everyone. Who are you bringing along when you get started with this? If you're an organization, do you have those summer students that you're bringing along to learn about those experiences? Or are you bringing youth from that community along? Are you hiring locally? Like those are things that you need to also think about, right? Because there's so many demographics that need to be connected with, whether it's our seniors, whether it's our youth, whether it's folks who don't have any status, folks with accessibility needs, folks from other communities that don't get normally the information regarding vaccine confidence or even health, right? We have to always remember that there are folks that are not around the table, and it's our responsibility as folks who care about our neighbors to invite them to that conversation and to continue this work. So thank you so much for your time, for paying attention to this important topic, and hopefully we'll get everyone vaccinated with a second dose, so that we could deal with this virus that has killed so many of our loved ones, and really has had a huge impact on our economy and in so many ways, how we live in the city, and how we interact with each other. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Walied, so much. I'm just going to invite, I know, Charlene, you just finished your presentation, but if you have any final thoughts, you're going to be our kind of last speaker for this morning.
My final thoughts are just, as Walied said, we need to, anyone who's interested in doing community organizing, bring them up to speed, coach them, teach them what we know, because they will definitely bring new and improved ideas to grassroots organizations. And I also want to touch on like frontline migrant workers who work in our communities. We all know that they are in our communities. I know with us at the York Southwestern Tenants Union, we have reached out and know of places where they can be vaccinated. Bruno has been working diligently at that and helping frontline workers getting vaccinated who don't have status or an OHIP card, which is an amazing work to be doing in itself, despite the work that we're doing, because we all know that in the city of Toronto, they say 3 million people live here, but I always say 3 million plus 3 million people who live here without status. So we are a huge population, and it's not only us with paperwork or status who should be vaccinated, it's everybody who wants to be vaccinated should be vaccinated. So that is work that we're currently working on, and it is, as we know, quite difficult, but it's work that, as we all know, needs to be done.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, everyone. So just checking the time. Any final thoughts from anyone else in the room? Beautiful. Okay. If not, I'm just going to say thank you so much, everyone. Please feel free to unmute yourself and jump right in and say hello so we can hear your voices.
Yeah, we just would like to thank you, all of you, 3 exceptional presenters today. Wow, honestly, I wrote so many notes and like taking those things. So it's very, honestly, so it was great learning for me. I'm so happy for you and proud of me that I got connected with you and learned from you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. It was great seeing everyone this Monday morning, and have a great week and stay blessed and stay safe.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Mercedes,
Bye,
Sharlene,
everyone.
Walied, Naum, Anna, and Nita.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Take